be broken in pieces. When the truth comes out, when the truth comes out, you can run, but you know it's ending.
Hey everybody. Gosh, I've missed you guys. I really wish I had the ability to do this a little bit more consistently because this podcast has been so fun for me. I have to tell you, a couple of weeks ago, I was like, I'm really excited to get into this space where I can start doing, like, maybe have some guests on and do some other fun topics. But I've got to tell you, the world has given us some really heavy topics to focus on. And I have always said that we are going to remain facts over fiction. And we were going to make sure that we were sharing the truth, thus the whole JennX, truth be told. And that's just continued to remain important to me. So as much as I would like for it to be lighthearted and fun this week, I think it was important to me. I think it's very relevant. And I think it means a great deal for us to talk about and focus on the events that have been taking place. You know, this week, my initial gut and my instinct was, and maybe it's because Charlie was 31 years old and he was born in 1993. And I have a baby that's 30. He turned 32 this year. He was born in 1993. And this mama bear in me rose up with this whole Charlie Kirk incident. And a big part of me wanted to rush to his defense, right? Because shockingly, there were all of these people that I have to be honest with you, the response online and in social media really threw me for a loop. I mean, I've experienced it myself, some hateful stuff with the far left and how they can come at conservatives and Christians and all the things. But I'll tell you, I genuinely thought for this particular circumstance, we were going to see more compassion and love and kindness. And that's not what we got, guys. There was quite a bit of hate and there was quite a bit of unkind things said, almost to the degree of it being well-deserved. And that didn't sit well with me. That would never sit well with me for anyone losing their life, okay? It didn't sit well with me with the young lady that lost her life on the train. It didn't sit well with me with the school shootings in the Catholic school shootings, the school shooting in Evergreen, any of them. And let me just blanket this statement one more time. It doesn't sit well with me with any of the things that we are seeing that are tragic, that are going on around the world. I get so angry and quite frankly, I get pissed off when I have to listen to people say, oh, you're all crying over Charlie Kirk, but where were you with Gaza? Where were you with the babies? Where were you with the school shootings? Watch my content. Watch it for more than 2 minutes. Could you people please have more of an attention span than a fruit fly? Because at the end of the day, if you look at my genuine content, you will see I'm heartbroken about all of these issues. And I make posts about all of them. And I speak into all of them because it's troublesome. But here's where I kind of landed and where I wanted to go today with the whole Charlie Kirk thing. The whole premise behind what I wanted to do with this podcast was I hated, and what motivated me for this was I couldn't stand the lies being told on both sides. Okay. So let's just be clear. I think that there are people on the right that fib and tell some lies and talk about things. And I'm like, where'd you pull that out of? That's not factual. Or they saw something on Facebook and then they just copy it and paste it and run with it without finding any facts. And I see it on the left. I see it all the time. And so I was like, I'm not going to do that. We're not going to do that. I'm going to be facts over fiction. And so that's how this whole thing came about. So sorry about that, guys. I had to take a break for a second. Okay. So where I landed and where I wanted to go with this today was I'm like, okay, we're just at the point where let's just do some debunking. Let's talk about Mr. Charlie Kirk. And I hope that this is the only time that I have to speak into this because I hate that there's even this much attention having to be given to the things that are being said. But I also can't stand untruths, and I can't stand when people take an agenda and run with it and they're not fact-based. I can't tell you how many conversations that I've had with people this week and they're like, he was a racist. And I'm like, okay, tell me how. Maybe I missed it. Maybe I missed that episode. What did he do? What did he say? I don't know. Did he secretly talk behind Candace Owens' back? because legit, that's his BFF. That's like his girl. That's his ride or die. Her tribute to him was phenomenal. And I just think these people, these two were, you can't be a racist and have the kind of relationship with someone like Candace Owens if you truly just have a distaste and you can't stand Black people, or you can't stand Hispanic people, or you're just like racist in general. You don't seek those groups of people out if you can't stand them. The man was not a racist. He said some things that I think, caused some discord and aggravated some of you because you misconstrued it. You didn't listen to the whole message. You took one little soundbite and you ran with it. This kind of thing is dangerous. That's a dangerous thing about social media. So let's just get into that. Let's just start debunking a few things. Okay, hold on. This is the first one. This is one of my favorites. How horrible, racist he is. So take a minute. Let's listen to this. Okay.
Hello.
All right. Hello. Thank you, Charlie, for being here today. We're with an independent FSU news organization, so just want to appreciate the fact that you guys have spent the time to be here. My question is in regards to the FSU chapter of the NAACP released a statement saying that this event was hateful, inspiring violence to Black, LGBTQ, and marginalized students on campus. How do you feel about this comment?
Lies don't bother me, so... But yeah, did you follow up and ask them what their evidence was?
Yes, they're quoting in particular an event that you went to December 2023, America Fest. You were talking about Martin Luther King.
I hosted it, actually.
Okay, perfect. You were talking about Martin Luther King Jr. and said that he has a troubled past and that the Civil Rights Act of the 1960s was a, quote, horrible mistake on the part of the U.S. government. Can you talk about that a little more?
Yeah, sure, but did they tell you why that makes them unsafe?
Yes, their opinion is that, and again, speaking on behalf of them, is that if you host this rhetoric, speaking negatively against the Civil Rights Act that is ending segregation, that there may be actions taken because of that belief that you have.
Right, but I'm going to explain that, but did you ask them that, wait, so different opinions make people feel unsafe at FSU?
They believe that it has a greater movement behind it, yes.
Right, so did you ask them, like, are you a child? Are you, like, an adult? And that's an insane thing to say. So a guy comes on campus and has a different worldview, and it makes people feel unsafe.
I guess to them, yes.
Okay, they're the ones you should be going to ask the question of. Let me be very clear. The world is a really dangerous place where lots of people have different ideas, and just because someone comes and has a voluntary event and has different perspectives should make you feel unsafe. Right?
Yes.
Okay, so we agree. As far as what I said, yes, Martin Luther King, happy to go into it, very troubled past, well-known rapist, all that sort of stuff, right? However, on the other side, the civil rights...
I had to stop it there, and I wanted to get into this because I'm telling you, when I heard this, I thought, whoa, wait a minute. A well-known rapist, a bad history. That's not what they taught us in school. So I thought, well, let me go down that rabbit hole because that's my whole thing. Let me look for facts over fiction. I just don't, I want to get to the bottom of it and get some information. So I ended up finding quite a few articles. I had never heard about this, but let me share this with you and let me read it to you. Pittsburgh historian uncovers explosive allegations about MLK Jr. and some experts were skeptical about it. Newly released documents pertaining to the FBI surveillance of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. include deeply disturbing and potentially explosive allegations about the slain civil rights leader's extramarital sexual activities, and that he was present in a hotel room during an alleged rape. But some historians caution that there's some reason to doubt this claim. The new information was unearthed by David J. Garrow, the Pittsburgh-based author and historian who won a Pulitzer Prize for biography for his 1986 book, Bearing the Cross, Martin Luther King Jr., and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. Key findings were published online and in print Thursday in The Troubled Legacy of Martin Luther King, a 7,800-word article in the conservative British monthly Standpoint. Garrow is a former professor at the University of Pittsburgh School of Law. He made a lifelong study of Dr. King and the FBI's obsessive spying on him. Any of this sound familiar to you? Sound like anybody else? Yep, I thought so. See where we go with this. A little over a year ago, Garrow delved into the vast trove of documents freshly released online by National Archives. The document dump was vast. It was about 54,000 web links, many of which connected to multiple documents or to an individual documents, hundreds of pages long each, says Garrow. Most of the documents related to the assassination of John F. Kennedy, but Garrow says decades of experience with the FBI's filing system enabled him to find the very tiny percentage of the material pertaining to Dr. King. That still translates to hundreds of documents. Most of what Garrow found, he says, simply expanded on the existing public knowledge of King's private activities. The new materials, for instance, provided more information about the number of women King had affairs with during the 4.5 years the FBI spied on him, starting in late 1963. Garrow says it's been known for 35 to 40 years that there were multiple other girlfriends. I always thought that there were probably 10 to 12 over the course of 4 or 5 years. The new material makes it clear that the total is more like 40 to 45 different girlfriends during his time when he was married. But the shocking allegations involves an incident on January 5th, 1964, at the Willard Hotel in Washington, D.C., according to a text summary of surveillance audio tapes found in the FBI files. Assistant Director William C. Sullivan, a top deputy to J. Edgar Hoover, King, and a party of friends checked into a hotel room. The room was bugged with 2 FBI agents listening from a nearby room. Then the document says King's friend, a fellow Baptist minister, forcibly raped a woman who was one of the other minister's parishioners. The summary adds that King looked on, laughed, and offered advice during the alleged rape. I had never heard of any of this. No one can hear the actual audio tapes or read the FBI transcripts. Both are sealed by a court order until 2027. So we still have a year and a half to go before we're able to even listen to that, little over a year. But if this incident were true, it would likely change many people's perception of Dr. King, who, despite his flaws, remains a social justice hero, one with his own national holiday. So listen, I think saying that calling out someone's character and their character flaws doesn't make them a racist. Look, if a Black person were to be saying this about Donald Trump, I don't think that makes them racist about white people. I think that they have heard stories and they have read things in the newspaper and they've heard the story and all the things. And I think that if that makes them feel like this makes him lesser than of a character, I don't think that makes him a racist. I think that means they don't like some of the behaviors of Donald Trump, correct? Charlie Kirk is saying he doesn't like the behaviors that he's reading about and the things that he's unearthed and learned about Dr. King. That does not mean that he's a racist. That does not mean that he does not like Black people. That does not mean that he doesn't believe in equality. And I can go on. And so Let's just dig a little deeper on that, because then everybody went into the whole civil rights movement and that he doesn't care about DEI and all the other things. So again, I'm not going to speak for him. Let's debunk that. Let's go facts over fiction. Here you go.
If you had the opportunity, you would get rid of the Civil Rights Act?
No, I think you should have a one-page bill that says that racial discrimination based on race is illegal and will not be tolerated in the United States of America. Most Black.
Did you hear what he just said? We should have a bill. It only needs to be one page, and it should basically be saying nobody should be discriminated on based on their race. You tell me how this makes him a racist. But, carry on.
Americans don't support is men and female sports. Would you agree?
I don't know.
Yeah, I know. No, for sure, right? Believe it or not, the Civil Rights Act is now being used to keep men playing in women's sports. So the Civil Rights Act was used to help Black America originally. Totally get that. But now the way it was written is that any claim of identification, so someone says, I'm a woman, therefore I can compete in your volleyball team. They come in with a civil rights claim. And so what we're saying is, no, it should be specified to racial, not gender, all that other stuff. And there were all these other provisions as well.
So listen to me. This is not my opinion of Charlie Kirk. These are Charlie Kirk's words. And people are taking these tiny little sound bites when he says, I think you should abolish the Civil Rights Act. And then they stop it there. They don't say that he went to that place of saying it should only be one page. Because essentially what it should have been about is we should not be discriminating against anyone for race at all, ever. How does that make him a racist? Genuinely. I would love people to come to the table, come back at me. This is on YouTube. It's on Spotify. It's on all the things. There's a place for you to comment. There's a place for you to leave a message. Tell me how that made him a racist. Now, also tell me, can you find any other footage? Because I'm telling you, I've spent hours. Can you find any other footage where he said anything just the complete opposite of this, to where he just honed in on a distaste, a dislike, or a hate for other races? I'll sit and I'll wait, and I'll tell you something. I could go to France and back and you still won't find anything, because it's not there. It doesn't exist. There are so many things out there against it. Here you go. One more. I'm going to give you one more.
Call me a white supremacist. What evidence do you have that I'm a racist?
I was just literally watching a video of you talking about whiteness as a whole, talking about whiteness as a concept, okay? And you were trying to explain how white privilege doesn't exist.
Correct, it doesn't.
You are a white man. How do you know?
What can a white person do that a black person can't do?
Black applicants to jobs are 50% less likely to get jobs if they have a black sounding name.
That's not even close to being. That's not even.
He literally said that if a black person with a black sounding name is 50% less likely to get a job, 50% less likely. I looked up this. This is the part of the problem of social media. That is a blatant lie. This kid will go around and sit around in the cafeteria at his college, and they will talk about how 50% of black people, especially if they have a black sounding name, which what does that mean? But if he's got a black sounding name, then apparently that's going to mean he's less likely to get a job. But wait, it gets better.
Close to being true.
That is a literal.
In fact, it's the opposite.
I'm not going to argue your lived experience. I'm not going to know.
See, now you have to listen to him under your rules, because a black person is going to say you're wrong.
I am. He can say I'm wrong. I know.
Come on up to the mic.
I know. I read your.
My name's Keemon Dixon. I have a really black name. Please tell me how 50% of my internships have been denied when I've worked for Senator Mike Lee, Mayor Trent Sachs, Speaker Mike Schultz.
Hold on.
I worked for Congressman Burgess Owens. I've actually worked on his campaign. I've worked on the campaigns of John Huntsman Jr. Please tell me how my black experience and my black man has not given me. Go ahead.
So, call me a white supremacist.
Listen, we can keep going round and round on this carousel. And I think this is where, like, at what point do we want to stop the level of division? At what point do we go, enough is enough? And we stop giving into the rhetoric and the bullshit and all the stuff and, carrying on all these lies. That is not what came out of the man's mouth. That is not what he talked about. Now, another thing that he talks about, and I just thought that this was important to bring up, and it kind of breaks my heart how people are not seeing the heart that this man has for people. The other big lie is how Charlie Kirk has a hate for the LGBTQ community. So then let's talk about this. And from a Christian perspective, I was talking to my pastor's wife this morning, and she said, what do you know about this, Jen? Because I know you've watched him for a really long time, and I know that you have a little bit more information. And so this is what I found.
So I'm going to ask a very respectful question, as respectfully as I can. What does what they do in their private life concern you so much that you have to go up in front of a crowd? And
it is against God. That is.
So let me ask you a question.
Are you a Christian or not?
Do we live in a theocracy? Yes or no? No, do we live in a theocracy?
You said you're a Christian.
I am a Christian. And do you know what? And guess what? I will say this. Part of being a Christian is appropriately interpreting what the theological says for the individual, but also means to be long-suffering and patient and loving and kind. Jesus Christ talked to all people. Jesus Christ went and did his ministry through Judea and Samaria, and he had dinner with tax collectors, and he had dinner with prostitutes, and he did his ministry in every part of the Mediterranean. What it means to be a Christian, my friend, is to be open-minded but firm in your beliefs, so you can have that belief. But if you say there's something inherently wrong with communicating or associating just because they make different personal decisions than you, then you, sir, are not a conservative. Thanks for being here tonight.
If that isn't the opposite of the picture that people are painting of him, this man did not. I can't tell you how many people have gone online and literally used, like when you've seen people in the LGBTQ community speak up about how their heart hurt to see how this man died, and all the trolls on the internet that are like, yes, but did you know that he hated you? Did you know that he hates our community? Where and how did he display that he hates you or hates this community? As a Christian man, as a conservative man, in his moral and ethical compass and where his beliefs lie, does he believe that homosexuality is a sin? Yes. Does he think that that makes him more superior to you, or that you as a human are minimalized and that you don't matter and you don't exist. And as Christians, we shouldn't find compassion and love and patience with you and get into dialogue and have conversation. No. And it also doesn't mean he won't sit at a table and have dinner with you. He may not go to your wedding. There's that. But that doesn't mean that he doesn't care for you and that he's not compassionate. So it gets exhausting to see how much people were going on and on and on about insulting this man. And I got to tell you, I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of people about the Charlie Kirk effect with church yesterday. So this brings me up to another point. We were talking about, and I guess before I get into this, let me just say, have I spoke loud and clear enough to say to you people that if you do come to my page and you want to get into dialogue, because I'm very open to this. I'm very much like Charlie in the sense that I'm always wanting to have conversation with people, especially on my TikTok account. And we talked about, all different types of, topics throughout the last year. And I'm not afraid of that. And I won't shy away from it. What I don't tolerate and what I don't stand for is the hate. And I have said that has been the biggest part of division in this country, and how this had nothing to do with. So everybody wanted to go wild with the whole, they're searching for the shooter. And they were talking about, who the kid was before they knew who he was, and before we had a name, and before we knew where he came from and all the things. It was, some people were speculating it had to have been a trans person. Some people were speculating it was about politics. Some people were speculating it was from the left. Some people were saying it was internal. Some people were saying it was government. It was, all these things. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think we're ever 100% fully going to get the truth. Do I think that the government hides things from us? Yes. Do I think that we are lied to often? Also, yes. But this is what I will tell you. Based on what they found and with the arrest that was made, this young man that was arrested, everybody instantly was like, he's a Trump supporter. And so then all of a sudden it was all about like the far right and Trump supporters and hate within the party and all these other things. And here's the thing. The kid's parents are conservative. He was raised in a conservative home. They supported Donald Trump in 2016. There's a picture of the kid in a Trump shirt and all the things. He then left the home. He went on and went to college. He was living with his transgender roommate. He was, there's evidence that he had reports of being in support of Antifa. And there's all these things coming out. And here's the thing, bottom line, I don't give a rat's ass if he was Trump supporter, if he was a Harris supporter, if he was a Biden supporter. I don't care if he was a supporter of the Teletubbies. This is what it came down to. It was deep rooted in hate. That is the core of what is happening in this country today. Everybody is being so hateful that they cannot have a conversation. Do you know how many times you have heard Charlie Kirk literally say, the minute we stop talking to one another, that's when the hate ensues. That's when violence ensues. Like, we should be able to sit down at the table and just chit chat and just talk. You don't always have to agree. You can remove yourself from the table if you want to, if you're done with the conversation, and say, hey, I'm going to agree to disagree. But anyone this week that found any joy or thought it was okay to go ahead and dance on this man's grave and dance on the name of his family, and the level of criticism that comes has also been insane to me. Like, a lot of people are doing this comparative thing right now with the whole Charlie Kirk versus George Floyd. And I think that comes from, people are just, they don't have this understanding of, they can't get why, because some people are saying like, look, when we lose someone to unjustness. So let's just say, okay, how Charlie Kirk was murdered, assassinated, because that's what it was. There's no, sugarcoating that. He was assassinated on live TV in front of his family. So that's what happened. That was very unjust, completely unjust. And for those that feel that the life of George Floyd was taken unjust. So let me just play that role with you for a second. Let me just go down that road with you. And let's say it is unjust what happened to George Floyd, even though he was in the middle of committing a crime, even though he was trying to get, pass a forged check. Does that mean that he needed to lose his life over it? Absolutely not. And the left went wild, and they felt like the root of him passing away had to do with the police officer and the amount of pressure being put on his neck. So I'm going to agree with you on all of that, right? So you and I were in agreement. It was a very unjust death. They burned down cities, literally burned down cities wanted him buried in gold, wanted to erect a statue over him. The right, when they lose someone unjust, they turn to their faith. They turn to their religion. They turn to prayer. They turn to one another. They have vigils. They get into conversation. They're talking about it. We give our thoughts and prayers to the family. Like, that's how they managed it. Yet you can't seem to, like, this is absurd to some people that this is how people are reacting. And then they're going on and then criticizing how his wife is responding and how she's grieving and how weird it was and how off it was and how she was acting when he died and when she was sitting by his casket and the speech that she gave. Listen, I did a TikTok on this woman, and I'm just going to tell you something. If you are not a believer in Christ, and if you are not a Christian, and you are not rooted and grounded in the word, in the Bible, how she's reacting is not going to make any sense to you. Because people that trust the word of God and people that are Christians do not see death as an end. They just don't. It's tragic how he died, but to her, she's fired up even more. Did you see it? Did you see it in her eyes? She wasn't off. She's resolved. And this is what I said earlier on my TikTok. I said, this woman has a sense of resolve. These two people did such a good job of building one another up. They just loved and adored each other, and they would build each other up as high as they possibly could. And so in her mind and in her perspective and how she portrayed it is that, yes, he's gone, but his story carries on. His message carries on. The gospel carries on. And so that's what I'm going to resolve to do. And I will carry on in my husband's name and in his honor. And we will carry on with Turning Point. And she talked about it because it meant so much to him. She is so in love with this man, and this was his passion. So you don't think she's going to talk about it? That wasn't her plugging him. She's not going to talk about statues and erecting a statue and burying him in gold and how do we retaliate and all the violence and all of that. That's not how we do it. It's not how we do it. Now, are there some people who claim to be Christian, conservative on the right that have a sense of lunacy and they are mentally ill and they do some bizarre things? Yeah, but that doesn't mean that's the consensus of everybody on the right and anyone that's conservative. And the other thing that's like really annoying is that I've had people, you know, when you are talking about the loss and the hurt and people are grieving. And I think they're struggling with the fact they're like, why am I grieving this man that I never met or I didn't know? And I think it's because he spoke for so many people. And this is a movement that is turning millions of people, like literally all over the world, to listen to his message. The man went from like just less than 2 million followers to 10 million overnight. And so his voice is being heard, and that is angering people that didn't agree with him. And all this man wanted to do was have a conversation. That's it. And I'm just going to say, it's a sad, sad place in America. If at the end of the day, agree or disagree, I don't give a shit about the political part of it. If you didn't agree with the man, that's okay. He didn't expect anybody to agree with him. He literally invited you. He invited the people that were the cruelest and the meanest to him to the mic. And he stood there and he took it with grace. Do you not see that? He allowed you to share your opinions. He allowed you to debate with him. And when you didn't get the answers that you liked, when he didn't placate you, when he wasn't pacifying you, because he wouldn't, you know, there's a guy that came up to the mic one time, heavier set man, younger guy in college, clearly beard, mustache, male haircut, wearing a baby doll dress over his male clothing with big hoop earrings and saying that he identifies as a woman and yada, yada, yada. He's going on. And he says to Charlie, why do you hate us? Why do you hate trans people? Why can you not just be courteous? And he's like, lying to you is not courteous. That's not being, I don't hate you. And he literally was like, look, if you want to dress up like a girl and walk around like a girl and say that you're a girl and identify as a girl and call yourself Julie and all the other things, that's on you. That's a you thing. If you want me to sit down with my child and tell my children that this is scientifically factual and that you can go from having these chromosomes to these chromosomes, and that because you feel it, your feelings tell you you're a girl, that you now are, I will not lie to you. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I don't think that makes people from the right or conservative or people from the left who even believe that there are so many people part of the LGBTQ community that literally, I was watching them today. They're like, you're not a girl. You feel better in girls' clothing. You've got something going on that you've got to work through, but that's what makes you feel comfortable. Then do you, Bo? He never denied people doing what they were, but he wasn't going to lie to you. He wasn't going to lie to you. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to continue to do facts over fiction. This has been my passion since we started this, and it started all the way back to January. That's when things kind of blew up for me a little bit. When I lost my mind over the whole congressional speech and people going off on Donald Trump and, that whole thing, like, you didn't have to like him and you don't have to like that he's your president. But to this day, it still bothers me as Americans. And this is the hate. Okay. This is the second example I have seen when everybody up on the Hill had an opportunity to stand for the right side of humanity. So the first example I saw was back in January when Trump gave his speech and he was honoring the young man from West Point, the women that lost their life to illegal aliens, the young DJ, the cancer survivor. There were so many that were being honored. The land preservation that was given to Jocelyn Nunegray because she was a young girl. She was a nature lover, and her life was sadly taken. And she was sexually assaulted by illegal immigrants. And so at the end of the day, all these Americans were being honored. And only one Democrat, I think her name was Kathleen from New York, stood up. The entire Democratic Party sat down, and they did not stand up for Americans. It had nothing to do with Donald Trump. But see, the hate for that one man keeps you from being able to have a level head and make compassionate choices and decisions to show support for your neighbor, support for Americans. It blows my mind. So that was the first example. The second example is when the Speaker of the House asked for a moment of silence, and people were losing their minds on the Democratic Party and did not want to do that. This man stood up for democracy, whether it was on the right or on the left, whether you agreed with him or disagreed with him. He had a voice and he was using it. He was using his First Amendment. He wanted to just speak truth. What he believed to be truth, whether you bought into it or not, was up to you. And that was okay. Choose what you want. But all he wanted was a moment of silence for a man that we saw lose his life live on TV, assassinated. That's it. That was too hard for Democrats to do. You wonder why. Listen, over 2 million people have unregistered as Democrats. You don't think this is having an impact? Come on now. It 100% absolutely is. So I guess I don't want to. Charlie Kirk does not need to defend him. He doesn't need me to defend him. This is what this man was. His yes was his yes and his no was his no. And anybody that is a Christian and follows God's word knows exactly what that means. And if you don't, Google it, because I want you to do a little research on it. But, at the end of the day, he genuinely just wanted to have a conversation. So I am hoping from this point on, we can learn from this and that we learn from our mistakes. I would love to have conversations with you. So I say, let's do it. I'm opening the door to conversation. Leave me your comments. Please share this with those that you know. And I'd love your feedback and your opinion on it. But at the end of the day, guys, we have a choice. And I hate to be as brass as I am with this, but I'm like, every day you can wake up to be on the right or the wrong side of humanity. Okay, that's it. That's what it comes down to. Stop thinking about politics. Stop thinking about platforms. Stop thinking about agendas. And just start thinking about humanity and compassion and all the things. And I promise you, if you choose being on the right side of humanity every time, regardless of your political affiliation, we will end up in such a much better place. And I think Charlie Kirk had impacted thousands before his death. I think he's going to impact millions if he hasn't already. So we miss you, Charlie. I will say that. My heart is broken because I truly enjoyed watching you. But I do believe your children will grow up and carry it on. And I do believe that your wife is a roaring lion. And I can't wait to see what she does. So I love you guys. Keep engaging and let's just keep the doors open to conversation. See you next week.